and gentlemen, welcome back to In the Zone. Rich Sutter, Pete Coles. It's hot, folks. It's hot. It's pouring rain outside, but the basketball world is hot. I got a couple of lifesavers in here right now. I was telling Pete I'm just trying to liquidate my throat right now after a couple of nights of yelling at officials and yelling at everybody.
That good right off the bat, huh?
Kind of wears on your throat a little bit. But I listened to last week's show, and I was absolutely horrified to see how I sounded, so we're going to try and soften that up a little bit today, even though last night I was chasing some zebras. So we're going to jump right off, Pete, into Pete's Corner. Let everybody know what's going on with our new segment. Pete's Corner is a couple of questions that Pete formulates for me, and we take it right off the beginning of the show, and it's 3 quick questions. And so far, it's been really, really highlight of our show. So might allow me to swig a little ginger ale here also, Pete, to help liquidate the throat. Go ahead.
All right, so I've been looking around the NBA landscape recently, and I have a big question for you on a particular team. Are the Pelicans done this season with because of their injuries? Should they just call it a year?
Okay. Is that the only one?
It's the one that stood out to me a lot.
Yeah. Okay. So their guy is Zion Williamson. That's their big superstar. And he's had a lot of problems with his health since he's been in the NBA. Probably a lot of that problem attributes to his training style, maybe a lack thereof, And right now it's hamstring. And in a guy that big, that size, that relies on his explosiveness that much, hamstring is a big deal. And so right now he's been hampered by that hamstring, and the Pelicans, without him, they're not very good to begin with. Without him, it's going to be really, really long season. Yeah, so that's a great observation, Pete, because there's a lot of teams in the NBA right now that if they have everybody and everything falls right, they can have a 500 season. And that's the Pelicans. If you have anything that interrupts that, any wrench goes into that plan, now all of a sudden you're looking at well below sub 500. You're going to be one of the worst teams in the league, and you're going to take on what we also refer to as L15. We got some of that going on right now with the Washington Wizards, losing streaks that just pile up the losses, deflate your team, and really, really put a damper on the organization for sure. Pelicans are one of those teams, and we'll go through it when we do our Power 15. We always do a Who's Not Hot segment. In that segment, the Pelicans are one of the teams that show up. And so that was a good observation, Pete, no doubt. Pelicans are in trouble.
Okay, so I did a little bit there's a lot of deep cuts this week because I was digging deep into the rules and things like that. And I noticed that the NCAA finally put in a lot of protections for their officials, like referees and things like that, like hands-off officials. Why was this just prioritized now? Why hasn't this been in place forever?
It hasn't been. And I think it's a binary type of thing where for a long time it's always been hands off the officials. Not allowed to make public comments about calls they made at the end of games. You're pretty much forbidden from calling those things out publicly. I think that's a little problematic, personally. I think if we're going to dance, we should dance in the sunlight, and have all full disclosure. But that one, I think that's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Well, and I have noticed that they really codified the physical contact with officials, not just calling them out on bad calls, but actual physical contact. Like, this is a new rule that it's an automatic ejection if you do physical contact with an NCAA official. And why is this coming out just now?
Because the contact's increasing.
Okay.
I would assume. They're having more incidents of it. And that's, part of it.
I just thought that would be like just common sense.
Well, like I said, it's a little bit of a binary thing. You have situations where this is what a coach does for a living. This is how he earns every single dollar that him and his family exist on. And then you have officials who don't, especially NCAA officials, who aren't full-time. They have other jobs. They do other things. And so there's that kind of disconnect I think, where the coaches are really hyped up and amped up and really into it. And the officials, by and large, do a good job on a difficult job. It's hard to know all the rules, how to implement them, and they made it even harder for them as they go on with all of these different things that they implement corporate-wise or from the headquarters. We're talking about hand check rule, illegal defense, all of the things that the NBA's implemented, which we're going to talk a little bit about later in the segment. To piggyback on what Shaquille O'Neal was saying, the NBA's ratings are in free fall right now. Why? And we're going to give you a couple of reasons why. But another good question, Pete.
All right, and third question is, we're into the season now. We're kind of getting established for sample sizes. Is Connecticut still the team to beat?
Yeah. In my Super 25, they're number one, and they'll be number one until somebody beats them. Now, let's talk about weapons of math destruction, the algorithm. I think that the algorithm has a build-in into it. And I don't know anything about computers or algorithms, but I guarantee you that there's some build-in to this to the algorithm that favors the Power Five. For example, Houston loses, Duke loses. The algorithm still tells you they're number one. How can that happen? How could that happen? They're 3-1. They've lost 25% of their games. How can they still be number one and number two? Let's go to Jay Billis, the big sportscaster. It trickles into other areas as well, not just related to the algorithm. But Jay Billis, no surprise, went to Duke. And I've often referred to him as Jay Bias, because everything is Duke. So they go, Jay, who has the most talented roster in the country this year? Oh, the Duke Blue Devils. I mean, come on. They definitely do not. There's other teams you would pick that have more talented rosters than them, and I could name a few for you right now. And this Duke Blue Devil team has a lot of weaknesses in it. But Jay Billis just sits there and spews out the Blue Devils. The algorithm spews out the Blue Devils, because they feel like they need Duke to be relevant. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But the weapons of math destruction are really driven by a group of guys that never played basketball generally, and they don't have the ability to rely on their senses and the other things that can go into making an argument and making something that's coherent. Because right now, all they're doing is relying on numbers, And if a guy hits 1 3 out of 2, okay, and then he takes one more, and it happens to go in, well, he's had a dramatic increase in his percentage, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Dramatic. And so that's kind of, I think some of the math that they have is very, very similar to the math that my daughter and my wife have when they go to the mall. They have this different math.
Yes.
Completely different math in the mall that the young ladies have these days. So I think they might be caught up in that a little bit. Tonight, you have the Baha Mar, Pete. There they are. They're struggling. They're really, really struggling out there in the Baha Mar. Going to play a couple of games, but the competition's pretty good. So I'll give you a couple of games that you might want to clue into. Baylor and St. John's, pretty good game tonight. VJ Edgecombe, obviously a Long Island product, considered St. John's as a school. Went to Baylor. St. John's is playing very, very well. They have some really, really good pieces that have returned from the team. Coach Pitino keeping some integrity on the team. And the real surprising piece is that they have gotten off to a very good start, despite the fact that Kadari Richmond has not gotten off to a very good start. Their big, I assume, high-dollar transfer. Okay, and you got Virginia and Tennessee in that game as well. Virginia loses Coach Bennett, and then they have Coach Sanchez take over. And now you got, Tennessee with Coach Barnes, who's been around for years and years and years. Really good matchup there, good teams. That'll be a good game as well. In the NBA, not a whole lot. You got the Magic and the Lakers, though, tonight, and I think that'll be pretty good. Pete, can we hop to our NBA Power 15? This is a segment of the show that I love because right now it illuminates a lot about the NBA. It tells you an awful lot about the NBA. Number one, it's going to be a little bit of a different year, folks. The baselines that are being laid, one of the baselines starts with the Cleveland Cavaliers right now. Pete, to answer your question that we asked you last year, we did a reverse back door on Pete's corner, and we said, Pete, do you think that the Cavaliers have the ability, and I threw in a caveat, especially given the fact that they have a matchup with the Celtics at Boston Garden looming, do you think they can make it to 24-0, 25-0 and top the Golden State Warriors? Your answer was no, and you are absolutely 100% correct.
I didn't see a pathway for them to do that with their
The Celtics got them.
yeah.
The Celtics got them, and I'll tell you right now, if anybody gambles on the NBA and you had money on that game, I'd be shaking my head. I'm going to leave it at that, but I'd be shaking my head if I was watching that game, and the way that game ended at the very end of it and the point spread being right about there, kind of amazing to me how they get it so close. Boston Celtics in the 2 spot, they've kind of rectified the ship. But as I talked about last week, Pete, everybody's kind of fallen away from these guys. The East is in disarray. The West is very, very strong. But right now, it's just the Celtics and the Cavaliers in the East right now. Here we go into the West. You're going to go boom, boom, boom. Golden State Warriors, they're back, playing good basketball. They have a very, very revamped roster. It's not just Steph Curry, and they let go Klay Thompson, but they have a revamped roster, and they're playing a little deeper, got a little bit more depth on that team, and they've been playing very, very well. They just came back from an East Coast swing where they were absolutely great in Boston Garden, but that East Coast swing's very, very difficult. They came back and they survived it, so they could be good for a while. OKC Thunder, they're doing great. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, one of the most exciting players in the game. As I alluded to, though, Pete, and we've talked about this with the conga line to the nurse's room, we have Holmgren hurt. Since that time, they've dropped 2 games. It's going to show. It's going to show. That's going to show in the depth. How much it shows, we'll keep an eye on that for you. All right, Los Angeles Lakers doing okay. J.J. Redick, I thought the J.J. stood for just joking when they were hiring him, but so far so good. And again, I did make this comparison in our show a while ago, maybe a couple of weeks back, but I did make the comparison that they're running a lot of what UConn runs right now offensively. It's really good offensive stuff. We try to simulate it as well, but not everybody has the same players that those guys have. Right now, the Lakers are doing good with it. But, Pete, I don't know if anybody in Lakerland actually watches In the Zone, but let's assume that they do.
Yep.
Because we said, move LeBron James to the point. They did it. And he's had 4 triple-doubles in a row. He's having an unbelievable year.
You've been calling for that for almost a year.
And when they did it, man, that team looks good. That team looks different. Anthony Davis was out. It didn't matter. They've sustained because you got the best player in the game right now. I think the best player in the game. He's playing right now. I'm going to give you a list a little bit later, but the Lakers are doing good stuff. They have won 6 games in a row. You have the Houston Rockets. I've been high on this team. I really like coming in here with my Power 15 and going, check this team out. They're good, and they're moving up the charts. This is the same exact team that just missed the Golden State Warriors last year for the last playoff spot. And I've watched this team. They're young, but they're maturing, they're growing, and they have a lot of talent. And they're really, really well coached. I think that right now in the 6th spot, they could get into some turbulence here and there, but right now they're doing good. Another team similar to them, the Orlando Magic, they're doing good. Franz Wagner doing very, very well, playing at a very high level, and they've got a couple of injuries as well, but if they can bounce around, they're doing pretty well. Phoenix Suns, this is what we talked about with the injury factor. When Kevin Durant went out, the Phoenix Suns were like 9-3. Now they're 9-7. Okay, they've dumped a bunch of games since Durant's been out. That's how good he is. That's how valuable he is. And we iterated that on the show, Pete, that we didn't think that Phoenix, after trading DeAndre Ayton for the player that they did, Bradley Beal, I just didn't see in that whole trade sequence how they benefited from that. DeAndre Ayton's doing pretty good, and now when Durant goes out, they're really, really soft up front, and it shows. The Denver Nuggets having problems a little bit. They got to tune in on defense. I watched them a little bit the other night. They are very, very soft on defense. New York Knicks, 9-6. They are beneficiaries of a good win streak right now. I think that team's trying to find itself a little bit. The trade kind of rocked their locker room. And I think there was some bad blood that was exchanged a little bit there. But You have a good team. You have a good roster. Let's see if they can bounce and get back. They're in the 10 spot right now. You could see them rise a little bit if some of the teams in the East actually come out of this funk that they're in right now. Minnesota Timberwolves, 8-6. I thought they'd be higher as well too. They mixed up with the Knicks, and now you see the Knicks and them in 10-11, where last year the Timberwolves were soaring very high with their team, and the Knicks were usually in a 4, 5, 6, 7 spot in this Power 15. All right, so now you got the Clippers, 8-7. They're called the James Harden Clippers right now. He's running the show there. And like I said before, he's better when there's not a lot of people around him. They got Ivica Zubac up front. He's doing pretty good rebounding. Sacramento Kings, 8-7. And the Dallas Mavericks, 8-7 as well. I wanted to talk about the Mavericks for a second, though, because they're playing, their offense is good. Kyrie Irving has been producing games unbelievable on the offensive side of the ball. He's really, really been doing a great job. And I got to call him out. Luka Doncic plays absolutely zero defense. Him, Randall, a bunch of these other guys in the NBA, they play. When I say zero, it's probably negative. Talk about Karl Anthony Towns. They're just out there. They're not even trying. Now, that's what we're going to talk a little bit about in your viewership, NBA. We're going to talk about why is that sliding. One of the reasons it's sliding is because they have defense chants all over the NBA in the arenas, and nobody's playing it. Okay, let's go through our stats real quick. I'll give you the points because we've had a little shift. Number 1, Giannis. He's having an MVP season. If I had to decide it right now, it would probably be him. He's having a great, great season. He is absolutely carrying the Bucks on his back right now and doing a good job. He's carrying them around like Samsonite luggage. We got Anthony Davis still hanging around at 30-7, although he's been injured. He's always injured, but right now he's a little bit of an injury. They expect him back. Jason Tatum in the zone MVP pick in the preseason, 29.9 points per game, and he's having a great season. He's showing up in rebound category, showing up in the assist category, and doing really, really well. Number 4, Nikola Jokic, and number 5, De'Aaron Fox. We're going to talk about De'Aaron Fox has his own segment right now on the show, so we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Excuse me. Jokic is the best rebounder in the NBA right now. Domantas Sabonis, Ivica Zubac, Cat Towns, and Giannis. That's why I have Giannis as my MVP. He's averaging 32.1 points per game, and he's also averaging 12.1 rebounds.
Wow.
He's doing it all over the floor. Assists, you got the Joker, 11.7. That's an unbelievable number for a 7-footer. 11.7 assists. He's just a complete player on the offensive end. Another guy, and this has to do with a little bit, and this is what NBA general managers really need to give consideration to when you're doing your drafting. And I always advocate for our American young guys to get drafted and to be given consideration and to give those good draft positions so they get paid as well. But in the international game, defense isn't really, really prevalent. And when the players come over here, they're generally not very good defensive players. And you can try and talk them into it a little bit. They have some talent for it, especially being 7 foot, 6'10". But I watched Doncic the other night, man. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty. The leaders in assists, again, Jokic, Young, Trae Young, LeBron, there he is at 9.4, Pete. They moved him to the point, and boy, is he dropping dimes. Cade Cunningham, 8.8. He's another one of our undercover lovers. You don't hear his name every day, but boy, is he playing great basketball. And there's James Harden again. There's James Harden again. All right, let me give you the 3 balls, and then we'll move. 3 balls, Anthony Edwards is leading. It's the first time in years that Steph Curry is not the leader in 3 balls right now. And to be honest, folks, he ain't even in the top 5 right now, surprisingly. Jason Tatum, 65. He's in the second place. LaMelo Ball has 63, and that's just volume. That's absolute volume. Norman Powell, 58, and Donovan Mitchell, 57. Donovan Mitchell's such a great player. Really, really great player. He's in Cleveland, so he toils a little bit in obscurity. If the MVP voting had to go right now, Pete, for in the zone, I'm looking at Giannis. I'm looking at the Joker. I'm looking at De'Aaron Fox, and I'm looking at Donovan Mitchell of the Cleveland Cavaliers. They have to be in the conversation. Rookie of the year, I was very, very high on Zach Edey. He's taken some injuries, and he's not off to the start that I thought he might be. Donovan Clingan hasn't gotten off to the start that I thought he might be. I think the Blazer organization ought to invest in him a little greater. But right now, Dalton Knecht and Jared McCain. Dalton Knecht playing for the Lakers had monster game the other night as a rookie, and we're going to talk about that in depth. Dominating DeBontis, such a great rebounder, but he's the first player in NBA history to record a triple-double without missing a field goal, without missing a free throw, having a turnover or a foul. That's pretty cool. But I'm also waiting for the triple-double that happens, while he has points, rebounds, and assists that are double figures, but also the asterisk of, he had 4 hot dogs and 5 beers at halftime, and the Mormon Tabernacle Choir sang at halftime, and while having the Trans-Siberian Orchestra somewhere in for the holidays, and also happening in a foreign country which starts in a vowel. We're just going to have these crazy things. I think it's AI, I blame the AI a little bit, coming out with some of these facts. Okay, not hot segment in the NBA. It's a rough one today, Pete.
Yep.
Utah Jazz, 3-11. It's rough for me in here with my throat, but you ain't in Utah. They're 3-11. They've lost 3 in a row, and it's not going to get better for a very long time. The Washington Wizards are 2-11, losers of 9 straight games. Their draft picks have not been solid. They're having some problems over there, and you're trying to get up when you've fallen, and you keep falling. The Philadelphia 76ers, this is a baseline. This is an NBA baseline. This team was supposed to compete in the Eastern Conference. They picked up Paul George from the Clippers. They were supposed to compete. They were supposed to make a run. They are 2-11. They've lost 4 in a row, and they are DFL in the Eastern Conference. Toronto, 3-12, not hot, no bueno. New Orleans, 4-11, and Toronto not having Scotty Barnes isn't going to help. And the Jazz versus Wizards right now to see who will be the worst team in the NBA right now, and going through the year. Right now I have it as the Jazz and the Wizards. So we talked about Dalton Knecht having a great start to the season for the Lakers, jumping and vaulting himself into consideration for Rookie of the Year. Here's the game, Pete. He drops 37 points in a win over the Jazz. Now you say, wow, they just must have blown the Jazz out. And no, it was a pretty close game. It wasn't bad. It was 124-118 in the game. But listen to this. Our rookie friend goes 12 for 16 from the floor. 9 for 12 from three-point range. Tying, which is absolutely crazy, tying with several other names, other players, rookies who've had 9 in a game. That shocked me that there would be others as well. He's tied. He's in 3 games is averaging 26 points on 63% shooting from the floor. 61% from three-point range, which is absolutely off the charts. Rui Hachimura got hurt, and they implemented Dalton Knecht in the lineup. And LeBron James was nailing every other team that lasted this young man until 17. LeBron James came out and said, how did you pass on SEC Player of the Year? How did you pass on this really good kid? And it's good for us. All right. I want to jump into the Celtics and Cavalier game a little bit, just to give you a little bit of what happened in that game. Celtics emerged victorious. Cavaliers look good. They've had some issues with Donovan Mitchell being in and out, but he did play in that game. The Celtics knocked them off. They ended their 15-0 run, and it was 120-117. The line on the game was 5 points. Watch the end of it. Makes you go, Okay, Jason Tatum, 32 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists. Unbelievable game. Horford's back. He is the Celtic whisperer. He's back. He came for 20 points, came for 7 rebounds, and he was 4 of 5 on those critical 3 bombs that he hits. He just nails those threes. When everything else is moving and grooving, you think you've stopped Tatum, you think you stopped Jaylen Brown, and then all of a sudden Horford pops open and he's 4 for 5 from three-point range. Darius Garland, one of our undercover lovers, well, he went undercover in this game. 3 for 21 and 0 for 6 from three-point range. Okay, we talked about Giannis. Giannis, the buck stops here. It's unbelievable what's going on right now. He's absolutely carrying the Bucks around. goes for the Bulls. He goes for 41 points, 9 rebounds, and 8 assists against the Bulls. Okay, Pete, I'm going to give you a new segment today. It's called Hi-Yo Silver. This is Adam Silver. He's drawing heat. The thing that you're responsible for as the commissioner in the NBA is the bottom line. If the ratings go down, you're going to draw heat. And the ratings are way, way down. Why? That's what we said we were going to try and answer for you. Why is the NBA, and this isn't down, Pete. This isn't down. They're in ratings collapse.
It's stinking gimmicks that they do.
Okay? It's
They think
definitely
they're wrestling.
Definitely that. Definitely that. As a broad macro, right? That's the macro. All the crap that you've thrown against the wall that you hope would stick and people would find interesting have actually caused people to lose interest in the game.
In-season tournament.
Let's drill into the micro. Okay, Pete? You beat me to the punch. Okay?
What kind of crap is that?
And in 11 games. 11 games. Go up the All-Star break and do it during the All-Star break. Do it the first time you come back from the All-Star break. I might be a little bit more interested. But to be honest, can you have negative interest in something, Pete? That's what I have in the NBA preseason little in-round tournament there. I think I have negative interest. I'm not sure, but I think you can. I think you can load that ion the other way. Okay, Hi-Yo Silver, baby. Pete alluded to one piece right there. The ratings are in collapse. Euro-style basketball. You're still playing in America, folks, and people grew up on this game. They're watching it, and they don't recognize it. They don't see the game that they played on the playground. They don't see it. Okay, close to 100, 70, 80 to 100 three-point shots every single night you show up in the arena. You're going to see close to 100 three-point shots. I don't think people go to the arena to watch three-point shooting contests. I really don't. When they go in, I think they get excited, but when it doesn't go in, it leads to very sloppy basketball, and it's terrible. But when you're getting into the 70, 80, 100, there's been 100 three balls taken in an NBA game, I think you've crossed over the line there. I think you've crossed over the myriad. Load management, Pete. Load management. People don't want to hear that. Nurses who are doing 24-hour shifts, firemen who climb into smoking buildings, teachers who are trying to control a classroom that's completely out of control. And you got guys making $60 million a year, and they're talking load management. Do you know what that sounds like to the average person? When they come out and go, I just signed a $60 million contract for 82 games, and I can't go back to back. What do you think the average person hears when they hear that? What do you think resonates with them when they hear that?
Here's the thing.
Chip, you know what? You just made the list.
Oh no! Oh, here we go.
You on the list now, baby. All-Star game is a joke. All-Star game is a joke. Illegal defense, joke. No hand check, joke.
We watched that clip of LaMelo Ball that took a stroll down memory lane.
That was almost from half court.
I know.
That was almost from half court. We're going to take a quick minute and stay in the NBA, and we're going to give you our top 20 players right now. These are the guys we think are doing the best. We got LeBron James. Nobody would have LeBron James right now. They all got him down. But I don't know if you've been watching, folks. What he's doing right now is playing some of the best basketball of his entire life. Unbelievable. Really, really good. Maybe having his son around has been a positive impact for him. Nikola Jokic, number 2. Got to pick it up on the defensive end there, though, fellas. And then we go Giannis. How about that for a 1-2-3, Pete? You got LeBron, Nikola, and Giannis. I feel good about that. It's tight. My list is nice. Now I'm going to give you one that most people won't have. Donovan Mitchell, Cleveland Cavaliers. They're 16-1 for a reason, folks, and he's a big part of that reason. Cade Cunningham, the Pistons, he's carrying them. They were decimate last year. They were a terrible program last year. He's got them moving, and they've got more wins now than they did a long time ago. I bumped him over Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I'll get a lot of criticism for that, and I probably should get some criticism for that. Not sure what I was thinking when I made this list. Anthony Edwards, The Timberwolves, look at that top 7, though. It's unbelievable. You've got some youth. You've got some players that are some of the greatest players in the game. It's quite a list. And then I add in Kevin Durant from the Phoenix Suns. Just a great, great player, and what a great career. It's amazing because had Kevin Durant not been in the same time frame as LeBron James, I think he would be given a little different consideration. I really do. I don't mind saying that. De'Aaron Fox, we got our own segment on him. Holy smokes. He dropped a 60-piece nugget, Pete.
Woo.
Dropped a 60-piece nugget, and I want all the people at home to clutch your pearls and hold on. And I'm going to give it to you, and I know this is going to hurt, and it's going to sound really bad in Philadelphia, but he played back-to-back games. Oh, I don't know how. He's embarrassing the rest of us. Steph Curry, a little bit down on the list with Steph. You know, he's playing well. Golden State Warriors are playing good, but I think he's been hampered with a little bit of an injury, and he's trying to play through it. Jason Tatum.
Is his team better around him where he doesn't need to carry the load anymore?
Great point. Great point. Great point. No doubt. Jason Tatum, I should probably move him up. I love Jason Tatum. Kyrie Irving from the Mavericks. I got him ahead of Luka right now. He's just playing better basketball. James Harden, he's doing good stuff. Like I said, it's better for Harden when he's alone. Better when he doesn't have a lot of good players on the team with him. He can just dominate the ball, do his thing, and be very effective that way sometimes too. You're going to live on the Mendoza line, though. You're going to be around 500 if you do that. LaMelo Ball with the Hornets, we saw him, Pete's favorite, takes off from half court, doesn't even need a dribble. Anthony Davis from the Lakers, great player. Just if you could ever really get him and LeBron healthy and at that run with maybe one other player, I think they could really tie it up. Franz Wagner with the Magic, I love this guy. He's tough. Around the basket, he dunks on people, he can shoot the ball. Just really, really a big factor for that Magic. Victor Wembanyama, imagine having him in a 16-hole. But that's where I got him right now. He's playing great basketball, but he does have a little bit of a consistency issue. And I saw him earlier in the year. Earlier in the year, he got muscled around a little bit, and I don't like that. When I see a guy get muscled, it worries me. Alperen Sengun from the Rockets. This is a huge reason the Rockets are doing great. Alperen Sengun, look him up. He's an undercover lover, folks. Tyler Hero from the Heat. Boy, look at his numbers. Absolutely incredible numbers that he is putting up right now. Tyrese Maxey has been hurt for the 76ers. Prior to that, really, really good. Having a great season. Cam Thomas from the Nets closes out our list, Pete. Moving in at 20. The guys I have that I'm going to give you that I think have slid out of our top 20, they're right there, but right now I just want to see a little bit different, and I want to see the team do a little bit better. Jalen Brunson from the Knicks, we popped him out. Joel Embiid, no way can he be in our top 20 if he doesn't go back-to-back and doesn't show better than what he's doing right now. His season right now has been an absolute complete zero. Luka Doncic, we call him Luka Onchik sometimes because the D is silent. Tyrese Halliburton does not seem to have come back from that injury last year, that bad groin injury, does not seem to have fully come back from that. He certainly is not playing at the level that he was before that injury. And Jamal Murray from the Denver Nuggets, another guy who's had some problems with that. Okay, here's our alert, Pete. Again, clutch the pearls, back-to-back games. De'Aaron Fox, 60-piece nugget versus the Timberwolves with Anthony Edwards out there, 130 and 126. Another thing that strikes me as a coach is a lot of these 60-piece nuggets, they wind up in losses. It's kind of weird. It was a great game. I'm not telling you he didn't have an unbelievable game, but sometimes it seems to throw things out of balance a little bit, and the other team comes out a little balanced approach. But let's listen to some of these numbers for our friend here. That's why I moved him so far up our top 20 list. 22 of 35, 6 of 10 from three-point range, 7 assists, 3 rebounds, 60 points. He had 109 total back-to-back. 109. Came back the next night with 49 points after playing the night before and having 60. Sometimes back-to-back's good. That night he was 16 of 30. Unbelievable. LeBron is on a quad triple-double move. He's off it now, but I think they might have watched into zone when they moved him to the point. Dirty Draymond Green. He's tackling rookies now. My guy, Zach Edey, gets a rebound, goes down the other way. Green's on the ground, just pulls him down to the ground. It was upgraded as a flagrant. But again, Hayo Silver, you want to do something about the NBA and their flagrancy and all the stuff that's causing their ratings to go? Get rid of some of those dirty guys. Get rid of some dirty Draymond, Dylan Brooks. Get rid of those guys. Wembayana also to the nurse's office. Okay, don't be so cavalier, Pete. The Cavs, they were threatening to run away with the Eastern Conference. The Celtics clipped them, but they are now 16-1. Anybody who would have told me that at the beginning of the year, I would have said, light it up. I don't know what you're smoking. Inside the NBA, we'll be moving to ESPN and ABC in 25-26. Yay! More Charles Barkley. Just wanted to see Shaquille O'Neal on my television one more time. Kenny Smith, yay! James Harden, now the second on the NBA three-point made list. He passes UConn Husky great Ray Allen, one of the great shooters of the game. What a tribute for Harden. He's at 2,975 three-pointers, passing Ray Allen. Number one of all time, of course, is Steph Curry, the ultimate three-ball himself. Part of 2009 draft class with Harden. Harden was in that same draft class. Harden was taken number 3 by OKC. Curry taken number 7 by Golden State. Curry has 3,782. So he trails him by approximately 800. My grammar school math came out to 807, Pete, I believe. Okay, we got to swing and we got to hustle, Pete. But we're going to dive on the floor for this one. In the zone, Super 25, number 3. Let's post it. There it is, Pete. You asked me, and we'll tell you straight up. Watch where the Huskies go. All right.
To the top.
Now we can get through. Okay, Connecticut. Of course they're number 1. Somebody knock them off. Then we'll take them off. Somebody knocked Houston off, we bounced them right out. Somebody knocked the Dukies out, we moved them way, way down. Those teams are way, way down in our top 25 right now. But I don't know how anybody can go, if you know the game and watch the way that they came through the NCAA tournament right now, you go ahead and bet against them. Right now they're 4-0. They're scorching everybody that gets out on the floor with them. And Danny Hurley is in his press conferences trying to make up ways, like to keep the team motivated, like trying to, find out things. We turned it over 4 times in a row, Yeah, I know you were up by 47 at the time, though, So he's trying to find ways to, I know what he's doing as a coach. He's trying to find ways to keep them on edge. And right now, with all of the success they've had, that's a little more difficult than people think it is. It really, really is. That's a tribute to that whole thing that they got going on over there in Stores. Kansas, number 2, they're 5-0. A lot of people have them number 1. I don't. I think if you matched up UConn and Kansas right now, today, put them out on a hardwood floor, Connecticut makes short work of Kansas. That's just my feeling. Gonzaga. Pete, I like to do it like that because my wife doesn't like it. Okay, Gonzaga, 5-0. Great team, great coach. They've got a good roster. I said earlier in the year this might be Coach Few's best team of all time, and we'll have to see if time prevails on that. Auburn, the Auburn Flying Tigers, they're 4-0, and they haven't had a plane turned around in a week, so that's a really, really good sign. Iowa State, 3-0. I don't know, what are they, in exam period there or something? They only have 3 games played. I doubt they even take exams out there, but what do you say? Kentucky, we had to move them up, Pete, and we're going to keep loving to say this all season long because we told you earlier in the year, before they even threw the ball up, we told you this, and it just kind of sounds cool. Pope is dope. That guy can coach. Their offense is really, really good. Kentucky's going to have a shot to be really, really good this year, folks. You're going to see a different type of team in that Kentucky Blue hit the floor this year. I can guarantee you that. Tennessee, Rick Barnes, he's like the Air Force Base over here. He just keeps putting out aircraft carrier after aircraft carrier. They're big, they're athletic, and they just keep reloading into his system, and it works like a charm. 4-0. His league is going to be very, very rough this year. Let's see if they can hang on. Everybody's in Cannoli City right now. A few of these teams have jumped out and played a few people, but just about everybody's in Cannoli City right now. Now you go and you say Marquette. Now, I watched them the other night. They played against Maryland. This team is good. Cam Jones records the first triple-double in Marquette history since Dwayne Wade, and this kid can play. You're not hearing his name as up for Player of the Year, but right now the Big East might have the number 1 and number 2 representatives for the Wooden Award right now.
Wow.
Calc Brenner, and this guy, Cam Jones, got to get consideration. Florida, bad news, Pete, out of Florida for me. They're talking about redshirting the Big O. 7'9" Olivier Roux. I wanted to see him get out on the floor this year. They're going to redshirt him. They're going to bring him back next year. But they're 5-0, Pete, playing good basketball amid all of the allegations swirling around their program. Wisconsin, 5-0, keeping the focus. I got them moved up. People have them way down. They have some good wins. They beat Arizona the other night, folks, and this guy, John Tanji, dropped 41 on them. Cincinnati, 4-0. The Bearcats are back, man. Bearcats are back. They're going to have a good season. Texas Tech, 4-0. This team is loaded with athletes. They're going to be able to cover it all year long. They're a lot like Houston, where they have a little bit of drawback on the athletic side, where they're really athletic, but then they have a little bit of drawback on the skill side because they are so athletic sometimes. They don't have necessarily the shooting and the offensive play sometimes to carry you deep into a tournament where you really, really have to have that really, really good energy on both sides of the basketball. If your defense carries you, eventually it can let you down. Creighton, 13. Kalkbrenner's definitely off for Player of the Year's consideration right away. And the Big East, folks, is a lot better than people thought it was going into the season. A resurgence of St. John's just really, really helps the Big East. It's unbelievable. All right, so now I want to go Mississippi State here. This team's good. They're, again, really, really talented, athletic. They can get up and down, and they have athletes and aircraft carriers all over the place. They block shots. They run pick and roll, high lows. They get to the rim. Pretty good team. You got to watch that team. That team could break. BYU, 4-0. They lost their coach. They lost their program. They're in consideration with the number 1 recruit in the 2025 class, A.J. Debonsa. And if they get him, that's going to set their program up really, really nicely. Right now I have him at 15, but right when Pope was coaching them last year, the guy was at Kentucky, Pope was coaching BYU last year, they were in the top 10 for us almost the whole half of the year. Yeah. They went undefeated a good part of the year. I think they went 12-0 without a loss. And then they had a great year. So now it's nice to see they're able to keep that together. Program integrity is one of the things that's going on out there. I got to move them up, Pete, a little bit because I watched them and they look pretty good. And it wasn't the guy, Kadari Richmond, that I thought. It was R.J. Lewis. Looks fabulous for St. John's. 4-0. Pitino's got him hot. I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but they had a great matchup with his son, New Mexico, in the Garden, and St. John's emerged victorious. Rick Pitino goes 3-1 in father-son. I could never understand that personally. If I had a son who coached, I would never, ever be anywhere near the sidelines coaching against him. Okay, number 17, Indiana. This is the team. Jay Billis asked, who's got the most talented roster in the country? This team has a more talented roster than Duke does. Absolutely. Indiana, put it down. I said it. Oregon, the Ducks, they're quacking. They're in a new conference. They're 4-0. They're better than people think. They got a good shot to win that conference this year. St. Mary's, if you're going to put Gonzaga way up top there, St. Mary's is very, very much close to Gonzaga in type of program. Their coaching is fabulous. They get good players. They've had some good players enter into the NBA as well. I got St. Mary's tucked nicely in the hills of Moraga. I got them tucked nicely in there at 19. Pete, I'm going to take a shot at this. I just don't know because they are so young, and they have had some injury to some of that young early on with Ace Bailey. But Rutgers, they're 4-0. Let's move them up. I mean, you got to get out of New Jersey eventually. You know, right now you're playing St. Peter's and, you know, FDU and some of those teams out there that aren't very good. Let's see what they do when they hit it. All right, here we go, 21. It's the first time I could put a team in with a loss. 21. Houston, again, they must be on Iowa State's exam schedule where they're 2-1. They've only played 3 games. Alabama, 4-1. Tough loss for them, but they seem to have regrouped. They're playing some pretty high-level competition. I'll give them that. Purdue, I was really, really up on this team, and then they took a tough loss. Not terrible. Dukies, they got smacked by Pope is dope, and I had to move them way down. Illinois also got cracked and moved them out. Who's sliding, Pete? North Carolina, sliding. Texas A&M, sliding. Baylor, sliding. Arkansas, sliding. Arizona, sliding. How does it break down by conference? Our in the zone. Super 25. How's it breaking down? The Big East is back, maybe. 4 teams represented in the zone. Keep an eye on Xavier, too. They might climb. ACC, 1.
Wow.
Let the silence be there, Pete. Let the silence be there. 1 team in ours. And I believe if they're in AP, they probably have North Carolina in there somewhere because they genuflect to the Blue Bloods all the time with that poll. But I think, they might have 2 tops. Okay. Big 12, this is where it's getting, Pete. And all of these teams, they all have the huge football programs, and you're going to look at it right now. Big 12, 6 teams. SEC, 6 teams. Big 10, 6 teams. 18 of your 25 are in those conferences with the WAC with Gonzaga and St. Mary's pulling it up. All right, Cam Jones in the zone, undercover lover. We talked about him. We're going to just give you the numbers real quick. First triple-double in Marquette history since Dwayne Wade. 17 points, 13 rebounds, 10 assists. Unbelievable numbers. He's playing great basketball. I watched them against Maryland, and he was the best player out on the floor. And Maryland's got some players. Maryland has Julian Reese. Maryland has the Big D, Derek Queen. They got some players, and some of those guys are going to be NBA first-round picks. I could see possibly both of them being NBA first-rounders. Queens for sure. Julian Reese I'm high on, but he hasn't really shown me everything I've been looking for this year. I want to see him progress a little bit more. Top 10 shake-up, shake-down. All right, Alabama loses to Purdue, bounce. Duke loses to Kentucky, bounce. Arizona gets a wipeout at Wisconsin and gets John Tanji, drops 41 on them, a 41 piece. Kansas, they had a nice victory over North Carolina. They also beat Michigan State. That's why people are high on them and have solidified them at number 1. Me, I'm not so sure. And Marquette was the team that beat Purdue. So Marquette has wins. It's one of the reasons I moved them up. They have wins over Purdue, and they have wins over Maryland. 2 pretty good wins. Okay, here we go, Pete. The Garden. You have Rick Pitino, St. John's, playing well in the Garden. It's their home court. They had 12,000 for the game capacity. It's about 19,000, 19,500 in the Garden. They had 12,000. I've told you on the show before, the Garden doesn't even want to see St. John's unless they have 10,000 tickets sold. Okay? So you got New Mexico, Richard Pitino Jr. coming into play against the dad in Madison Square Garden. Big matchup. Pops was victorious. He's 3-1 now against his son. I won't get into any of that. How personally, I would not want to have any part of that. But here's a piece of it that Coach Pitino, the senior, wasn't too happy about. I don't think Coach Pitino, the junior, took any heart to it. But St. John's has the game in there. It's 85-71. At the end of the game, they've got it. Last 2 minutes of the game, the entire Garden breaks out into a chant of, "Who's your daddy?"
That's not cool.
And I thought, man, just
It's
leave
funny,
it.
but it's not
Just,
cool.
Yeah, it is. It's typical New York, Funny, but you got to not cross the line sometimes, folks.
You sure that wasn't Philly fan infiltrating the joint?
New York and Philly, it's only 90 miles, Pete. It's only 90 miles. But St. John's is now 4-0, and college basketball, they like that. New Mexico got their first loss, and they go to 3-1. Ace of base, Bailey. He finally showed up in a Rutgers uniform after sitting out for a couple of games of injury. Maybe he's just practicing his load management in case he gets drafted by the 76ers. But right now it looks like he might get drafted by the 76ers. But he plays his inaugural game for Rutgers and drops 17 points. Pretty good start for him. He's very talented, very good player, probably top 5 on an NBA draft board anywhere right now. I want to see a little bit more from him in the college ranks before I go top 5, but he certainly can play. Orange is the new Melo, Pete. Orange is the new Melo. The new Melo, Kiyan Anthony, Carmelo Anthony's son, also chose to play at Syracuse. He's going to follow in his dad's footsteps. His dad spent 1 year there and won the national title with Syracuse and has also donated very, very generously. Pretty cool thing, Pete, from two guys who have a TV show. He made the announcement that he was going to attend Syracuse on his dad's TV show called 7 p.m. in Brooklyn. If you add number 15, Sadiq White, who they signed already, to this class, this is really Syracuse moving in a very favorable direction to try and reclaim some of their basketball history. You know, losing Coach Boeheim, moving into Coach Autry, a little bit of a program shift as well as dropping the 2-3 zone, moving into man-to-man. But, you know, if they can possibly keep, you know, Donnie Freeman, who's their big freshman this year, he was the number 6 ESPN player in 2024 class behind Cooper Flagg and Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, but a great, great player in his own right. By all indications, is considering a one and done, but sometimes that doesn't always work out. If Coach Autry can keep that Donnie Freeman, Kion Anthony, and Sadiq White triumvirate together, they're going to move quickly because that's a really, really good threesome right there that you can get away with and start to move and play with, and they have other good players around them. The one thing I will say to Coach Autry, because I love him, he's from the Bronx, he's a great guy, and he played at Talentine, and I was coaching at Malloy, and we played against him in the semifinals of the city tournament, and we also lost to them in the city tournament. What I will say to Coach Autry is, I know you've given up the zone. Now you're playing man-to-man. You got to play it better. Got to play it better. Their defense has not been strong. Their defense has absolutely been atrocious. Okay, some college basketball programs, Pete, I think they are operating merely as money laundering programs right now. And so we're going to ask the DOJ and the FBI to come in and investigate whether some of these programs are just money laundering operations. We talked about Mississippi Valley State last year, taking about 8 buy games where the money just fell in, paying for all the other sports. Coppin State has quite the history with that as well. All right, we're going to close and give you, we talked about John Tanji, 41 points from Wisconsin. Move him up your list as one of the good players in there because we're going to give you our top 20, give you the top 20 NBA players. I'm also going to give you my top 20 right now players. What's happening in this moment, where it's at, here's my list. Number 1, Ryan Kalkbrenner. We said that Creighton, we said that the Big East was a lot better than it was, and it's certainly off to a good start. Number 2, going to surprise some people with this one, Pete. Mackenzie Mabako from Indiana. Look at his numbers, sophomore. We called it also earlier in the year. They have a very good roster, but that young man, if he decides to go pro, probably going to be on that board somewhere in the top 10. Cooper Flagg, number 3. He's playing very well for Duke. He's been their one consistent thread the whole time. I got him in the top 3. I'm not opposed to moving him up as I see a little bit more. Cam Jones from Marquette. As we just aforementioned, the triple-double, the first one since Dwayne Wade. But this young man, I knew when he was coming back, Marquette would have a shot because he's such a great player. After losing Kolek and losing Iguodala, I knew Marquette had some significant losses. But the fact that they had Cam Jones back could really solidify things for them. Here's a number 5 for you. People are going to go, who? Dawson Garcia, Minnesota. Playing great basketball right now. Dawson Garcia, Minnesota. NBA general managers, start watching some film on him. Number 6, Walter Clayton Jr. from Florida. He's unbelievable. What a guard. Playing unbelievable basketball right now. He can score the basketball. He's what we call in the business a bucket. Who's what we call a bucket? Okay, we got Dylan Harper. Dylan Harper from Rutgers. Really, really solid, having a great freshman year. He shoots the ball lights out, really, really doing great things. Derek Queen we have in the 8th spot at Maryland. The big man's been doing good stuff, moving up and down the floor, doing really, really good stuff. I really, really enjoy him. I think right now, 9, Trey Johnson, probably the best freshman right now. He's having better numbers right now than Cooper Flagg is, and he plays for Texas. Texas isn't off to the greatest start. They had a bad loss, but Trey Johnson from Texas, certainly one of the top 20 players. Great Osabor. What a name, huh? Great Osabor. He's out at Washington, transfer. They paid big money for him, and he's paying dividends. Hunter Dickinson, 11. Never been a great, he's a great player, good player, but I've never been a great fan of his and his style, but he's in the 11th spot. I go with Caleb Love, 12. Look at this top 20 if you have Caleb Love at 12. Mark Sears, Alabama. He's having a disappointing year for me. I mean, they're good, but I expected him to be Player of the Year category, and right now Kalkbrenner's got his lunch money. Johnny Broom. Johnny's got the broom, and they also getting that plane turned around, baby. Johnny Broom goes for Auburn. I have him in the 14th spot. 15, Tamim Lipsey. This is a deep list because Tamim Lipsey, you could easily make a case that he's higher than that. I'm going to go with him because I saw him play, and wow, he really did some good stuff. R.J. Louis from St. John's. He's their leading scorer right now, and like I said, I anticipated, and I think a lot of people did, Kadari Richmond would be their best player, but right now he is not. 17, Braden Smith from Purdue. Zach Edey is gone, but the beat goes on with Braden Smith. They're off to a good start. Tough loss the other night, but those things are going to happen. I'm going to tell you something about Matt Painter a little bit later in the show. The aforementioned 41-point master, John Tanji from Wisconsin, is 18. 19, Zach Freemantle. This is the young man who sat out, was injured. He's back at Xavier right now, and this is the reason we're saying Xavier could climb. Zach Freemantle and Kobe Bria from Kentucky. Transfer out of Dayton, and man, if Dayton had kept him, they would be cooking with gasoline. But they have him, Kentucky has him right now, and he is shooting lights out. Sliding out of my top 20, Wade Taylor IV. Texas A&M, not producing the numbers that he had. Ace Bailey, injured, but also came in, had a game. It just hasn't been, what I anticipated. Jaleel Bethea from Miami. I couldn't sworn that he'd be a starter there and really be a guy that they would rely on a lot this year. He doesn't get as many minutes as I thought, and he's coming off the bench. VJ Edgecombe, we talked about this last week, Pete. He's shooting under 20% from three-point range. Not good. And Kadari Richmond, St. John's was happy to bring him in, but, man, it's been rough. Painter, Matt Painter, the Purdue coach, he's Monet. He's just Monet. Purdue, up until they lost the other night, had not lost a single regular non-conference season game in 39 regular season games. Syracuse does hold the record, and they had the record for a very long time. They had 52 straight non-conference games that they had won without a loss. When it says leave the gun, take the cannolis, this is our new segment. It's a net addition. Leave the gun, take the cannolis out of The Godfather. This is what we're talking about when they bring in these teams for guarantee games and they absolutely pound the submission out of them. Coach Willard may be sore off that loss that they had to Marquette, brought in the Canisius. We're not even supposed to say that word as a St. Bonaventure alum and graduate, but the Canisius Golden Griffins, 108-37. Somebody do the math on that one for me, Pete, but I think it's in the 70-point range. And this is what you're going to get a lot more of as you get to this format of we're just moving money. We're just moving dollars. We're moving pictures of the president. And what we're talking about when we move pictures of the president is guarantee and buy games. All right? So now you got a team like that comes in and they're going to take a game. They're going to play against an opponent they have no business playing against, but they're going to take the game because they're going to get $150,000 out of it, maybe $100,000 out of it. Okay? Little trip to Maryland, out of Buffalo, not bad. You fly right in, you fly right out, you stay over. You get a nice $100,000 payday, but you also lost by 70. I've seen that occur on the football level as well. And I've seen it occur at the football level with devastating circumstances because lower-level teams will go up and play those higher-level teams, and half of the team goes out injured. And I've seen it 2011 season that happened just because of one guarantee game. One guarantee game. They went out, and their entire front line, starting quarterback, wide receivers, running back, all injured. They all left that game on a stretcher. And you took the money, and you got paid for it. But your team was never the same, never quite right after that. When you expose your team to a 70-point L and they didn't break 40 points, you really got to consider whether it's worth the $100,000. These colleges all have a lot of money. These colleges all have a lot of resources. And, you can't, be using your basketball team as a money laundering operation, all right? It's just not cool, all right? In a zone, we're going to take a shot at you for that. We got the NIL. We got the portal. We got all this other stuff. At least let's clean it up on the university side. At least control the stuff that you can control. That's what I tell my players all the time. Control what's in your grasp. Pete, we're out of time. The fastest hour in all of the United States Hoopland in the zone. We'll be back next week, and hopefully we'll have another Super 25 and another Power 15 for you. Have a great week, folks. We'll see you then.